I'm Frank, professional chef and culinary instructor, and today I'm going to show you how to make the perfect mac and cheese. You'll learn all the techniques to make a perfectly melty sauce, pick just the right pasta, and a crunchy topping that takes it over the top. This is Mac and Cheese 101. Mac and cheese should be creamy, cheesy, and comforting. And I'm going to show you a method that skips the flour, skips the baking, using one special secret ingredient. That's how we're going to take this comforting side dish and make it the star of the show. When it comes to cheese for my mac and cheese, I like to choose 3 different types. Cheddar for sharpness, Gouda for flavor and creaminess, and then I'm gonna use some grated Parmesan to give it a little bit of zing. Something sharp, something creamy, and something really flavorful. By following that basic formula, you're gonna solve a lot of the problems that people usually make when they make mac and cheese. If you don't choose the right cheeses, you're gonna end up with kind of an oily sauce that's broken. My Parmesan here is freshly grated. I'm gonna put this aside. I don't need to do anything with it. But I do wanna grate my other 2 cheeses. Now, first of all, with the Gouda, I'm gonna take some of this brown skin off. It really doesn't melt well, and because it has that smokiness to it, it kind of dries out and gets rubbery. So what I do is I cut it into manageable pieces. And then I get my grater, put the grater flat, and push. This way I'm kind of using my body weight to push the cheese. I feel like it takes a little less time. It actually takes a little less effort as far as I'm concerned. Once the cheese grater gets full, you can push it and dump it to the side. So there's my shredded Gouda. I'm gonna take the block of cheddar, make it manageable. The grater's on its side, and we push. For mac and cheese, I feel it's super important that you buy a block of cheese and shred it yourself. Pre-shredded cheeses have anti-caking agents and cellulose in them. I find that that lends to a gritty sauce. So buy the block cheese, take a minute or 2, and grate your own cheese. And I promise you, if you use my method here, it's gonna be quicker and easier. Ideally with mac and cheese, you want a cheesy bite every time. Basically, the pasta is the sauce delivery vehicle. The ideal pasta for mac and cheese has holes, ridges, curves, and this pasta delivers. Today, I'm using elbows. So when we cook our pasta, we're basically gonna do it the same way we do every other pasta. We have a boiling pot of water. We're gonna add a fair amount of salt. Not quite sea salty, but salty enough. Make sure the pasta goes in when it's boiling. For the most part, this just keeps the pasta from sticking. If you don't have this piece of equipment in your house, you should get one. It's called a spider. I'm gonna give it a stir, but we don't wanna constantly stir the pasta because that's gonna break it up. We just wanna make sure the pasta's not sticking to the bottom of the pot or to the other pasta. I'm cooking this al dente because the pasta is gonna absorb some of the moisture from the sauce, and it's gonna make our pasta softer. So if I go al dente, my pasta is gonna have a little bit of bite to it and not be mushy. When I add the sauce, the pasta is gonna be the perfect consistency. The pasta is ready, and how do I know that? Because I took a piece and I put it in my mouth and tasted it. That's pretty much the only way you know that the pasta is where you want it, and it's the right texture. I'm putting it onto this flat tray so that it cools fairly quickly. I like to use the spider just in case I want to save some of the pasta water. So there's my cooked pasta. You'll notice that I did not rinse my pasta off. The starch on the pasta is gonna help the sauce stick. You're also going to rinse away a lot of the salt that you put in there and the seasoning. If you like a dried out brick where the sauce is kind of iffy, please, by all means, put it in the oven. What I like to do is make a crunchy topping that kind of hits those notes of that crispy cheese on top without it going in the oven. Putting your mac and cheese in the oven tends to dry it out, and this method kind of avoids all that. My topping is straightforward, it's pretty easy. We're gonna put our pan on medium heat. We're not gonna go too high. I'm gonna add my butter. The butteriness kind of mirrors that creaminess of the cheeses. It's gonna coat those breadcrumbs and let them brown. I'm gonna add my garlic while the butter is melting. Fresh garlic is gonna give us a little crispiness because they're gonna get crispy with the breadcrumbs. It's also gonna give you a cleaner flavor than, say, a garlic powder. Once I start smelling that fragrant garlic, I'm gonna add my breadcrumbs. They are panko breadcrumbs, which are just dried out Japanese breadcrumbs. It's not super fine, they have some chunkiness to them. So I'm gonna add some salt, add some black pepper, a little bit of paprika, and then a little bit of cayenne. Stir this all up, giving it a little shake. We're gonna get a nice color from that paprika, a little bit of heat from our cayenne. Give it a shake so it doesn't burn. I think we're good there. Shut it off. Let's get it onto our tray. By putting it on a tray, it's gonna basically stop or arrest that cooking. And what I'm gonna do is just spread these out so they cool quickly. Put them aside for when we're ready to top our mac and cheese. Using toasted breadcrumbs is a great alternative to get that crispy top without putting your mac and cheese in the oven. So now it's time to make my sauce. And if there's one special ingredient here that I use that is possibly out of the norm, it's this magic little powder here. This is sodium citrate. It's a type of salt that will bind the fat and the proteins of the cheese together and make a super creamy sauce. So it's an emulsifier. An emulsifier is something that takes two things that don't normally stick together and it sticks them together. In our case here, it is fat and protein. This is the modern chef's secret weapon for creamy mac and cheese or cheese sauces in general. Sodium citrate is not only going to add a little bit of seasoning because it has salt in it or sodium, the citrate part is derived from citric acid. So it's going to add a little tang as well. If I don't have sodium citrate, I will just add some American cheese that has sodium citrate in it. And that's going to carry some of the sodium citrate properties to your finished sauce. Let's start with medium heat, butter in the pan. I'm going to add my onions in, and I'm going to add a pinch of salt on those onions just to dry out some of that moisture. And I'm just going to let these cook until they are translucent, not brown. I'm starting to see a little sizzle there. I'm going to add my garlic. And I always add garlic second just because onions take longer to cook and we don't want to burn the garlic. So onions are starting to get there, starting to smell really good. And like I said, this adds a nice savory background to our dish. So my onions are getting translucent. And at this point, I'm gonna take my milk. All the milk goes in. So the milk here is just the base of our sauce. I usually do more sauce than I need. This sauce holds really well in the fridge. Plus, when I add it to the pasta, I like to have extra sauce. My milk is in there, and then I'm gonna take my sodium citrate, and I'm gonna let that dissolve. I'm gonna hit this with a little black pepper right now. And I'm gonna just bring it to a light simmer. I want my sodium citrate to dissolve and I want my milk to get hot. If our milk isn't hot, our cheese is not gonna melt. My milk is hot now, and what I'm gonna start to do is whisk some of my cheese in. So a common mistake people will make at this point is they'll add all the cheese at once. And what that's gonna do is it's gonna cool our milk down and the cheese is not gonna melt. So just sprinkle it in and whisk as you go. So just add slowly. I add a little bit of my parm. A little more cheddar. So my sauce is thickened up with the cheese, but as a final step, I'm going to add a stick blender in. I'm gonna add my cream, and I'm gonna add the last of my butter, and this is really gonna smooth it out. All right, it's looking pretty good there. It's smooth, it's creamy. I don't mind if it's a little dense right now. If I think it's too thick, I can always add a little milk. But I like this density here because the denser it is, the less liquid's in there and the less liquid that's gonna go into my pasta and it's gonna stay as a sauce. Look, we have a nice flowy sauce, right? I want you to listen. What do you hear? Nothing. Silence. That's what we want. No plopping, silence. We don't want ploppiness in our sauce. Time to assemble this. I have my nice cheesy sauce. I'm gonna lower it down. I don't want it to scorch. And now it's time to add the pasta. It's really simple at this point. You notice I have a lot of sauce for the amount of pasta. Like I said, I like double the amount of sauce. I do think it makes it extra creamy and delicious. So all I'm gonna do now is stir in my pasta and make sure I get it hot. Look at that. Some of the sauce is gonna get soaked up by the pasta as it heats. So we could eat it just out of the pot, but I'm gonna put it into a serving container just so that I can serve it with my delicious crispy topping. So the elbows that we used, the cheese is getting into all the cracks and crevices. And then I have my prepared breadcrumbs from earlier. We wanna get some crunchiness in every bite without drying out our pasta. And done, easy peasy. So my mac and cheese is ready to go. I think it looks spectacular. There's only really one more thing to do right now is to taste. So I'm gonna take a little here. Yes, look at it. It is not dry. Onto my plate. The sauce is super rich, really cheesy. You can taste a little bit of the garlic and onions in the sauce as well as the garlic in the topping. It gives it just the right amount of crunch with the maximum amount of saucy creaminess. That there is the ultimate mac and cheese. If your mac and cheese is stressing you out, you're doing it the wrong way. You don't have to be an expert to bring it to the next level. Mac and cheese is comfort food. Use simple ingredients, use good technique, and it's gonna come out beautiful every time.